So today I'm here with Will Johnson. He's with Benchmark Mortgage, and we're going to talk about reverse mortgages and how reverse mortgage can help you build an ADU on your property. And I have kind of an interesting story. The first time I heard about reverse mortgages was actually from my great uncle, and he was telling me this story that reverse mortgages were a little shady back in the day, and he lived to be 100. He's been gone for a number of years, but he had told me that he had gotten a reverse mortgage and he was had received payments on it for maybe like 3 years, if I remember correctly. And at some point, he got a phone call saying that was a scam and they canceled that mortgage that he had
Wow.
signed. Yeah, it was crazy. It was a total scam. Cancel the mortgage, and he didn't have to repay any of the money that they'd been sending him for the past 3 years. So it was kind of funny. We were actually in the car driving to a funeral of all places when he told me the story. And he was actually kind of thrilled because he thought, I got 3 years of payments for nothing and they just canceled it. And yeah, so then he told me that he was going to do it again. So he was going to get a whole new reverse mortgage all over again. And it actually probably worked out pretty well for him because he did live till he was 100. And he had that reverse mortgage, the one after, which is probably legitimate, not scammed mortgage for a lot of years. So, Will, I think you can tell us that this probably is a much different thing nowadays than it was way back then.
Well, that's actually sort of a positive story, right? He
Right.
actually benefited from people's mistakes. But, I think they made a pivotal change in 1987. FHA stepped in and started to offer a HECM home equity conversion mortgage, a reverse mortgage.
Hmm.
So now they were stepping in and they provided an awful lot of safeguards to really protect the consumer. And I think that just really added to the legitimacy of reverse mortgages. There's a lot of bad press from
Yeah.
these kinds of tactics in the past and aggressive selling pressure on elderly people, senior
Yeah.
citizens. So we still have that stigma, but reverse mortgages can be a very, very sound investment.
Do you know, I just out of curiosity, do you know, because I don't really know, what were the issues that they had with reverse mortgages prior to 1987?
I don't have a lot of details myself. I just, did the research on it and just,
Yeah.
seen people talk about it, that it was problematic, was not very well regulated, as you can imagine can
Yeah.
happen in the lending industry. And to me, senior citizens are prey to
Mhm.
just a lot of different sales tactics. I mean, I witnessed that with my mom. Her phone just keeps ringing
Yeah.
incessantly,
Yeah.
and they're all trying to sell her something. And, she's on the computer trying to talk to support. Really dangerous. So
Right.
I think it's all of that. But FHA stepped in and really, I think, put a lot of the safeguards. It's all towards protecting the consumer.
Right. It's definitely a much better situation for everybody overall now. All right. So we have this PowerPoint presentation that you put together for us to understand more about reverse mortgages. So go ahead, tell us about it.
Y- Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Maria. I appreciate it. I'm just focused in on the ADU market space, really putting together financial solutions. And, we have talked about this, about can we leverage a reverse mortgage to build an ADU? And this is actually, for the right customer, an exciting opportunity. So I'd like to talk about, how we can leverage the reverse mortgage to build an ADU.
Oh, right. And I completely agree. I think it's a great option for people. And if anybody doesn't know what an ADU is, if you haven't seen the other videos where we've talked
Mhm.
about it, it's an accessory dwelling unit. So it's often, known as a granny suite or an in-law unit or something like that that's on your existing property. So I just want to throw that out there in case anybody doesn't know what that is.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, what we can do with the reverse mortgage is we could take advantages of certain features of the reverse mortgage, pull out some equity, lump sum payment, enough construction costs to build an ADU, and this is really going to provide a lot of income that's really going to be paramount in your retirement years.
Yeah.
Okay, so I take my particular position. I'm in my 60s and I'm really nervous about retirement. And as I started to do research, this is actually a well-known document. Anxiety, both from AARP and senior living, have really identified people are really just faced with the basic question, did I save enough, invest enough to really cover me in my retirement years?
Yeah. It's a huge concern.
So basically, I mean, I think people should always be thinking about retirement, but I think it really hits you like in your 50s. This is something you really need to start anticipating and really, start making sure you're taking the right action to really plan your savings, your costs going into retirement.
Definitely.
So I think we've all understood with inflation that we incurred this year is this is really just adding to our anxiety. I mean, we're on a fixed income from just overall income standpoint, but now we have to really start managing costs. Really, with inflation sort of taken off the way it has, this is really just going to compound the problem for many of us that are trying to plan our retirement.
Right. And I agree. It's definitely nobody saw this inflation coming. We didn't plan for it.
So another statistic that's come about in numerous surveys, very overwhelmingly, senior citizens, baby boomers want to age in place. So, for all the right reasons, familiarity, family,
Yeah.
access to healthcare. And it's actually proven to be some of the most affordable choices that you
Hmm.
can make.
Yeah.
So another statistic from numerous surveys from AARP have shown overwhelmingly baby boomers, senior citizens really prefer to age in place. And for all the right reasons: familiarity, family, access to healthcare. And it's actually turning out to be one of the most affordable solutions when it comes to retirement. So let's talk a little bit about reverse mortgage. So as we talked about earlier about reverse mortgage is, there's a lot of bad press and a lot of it has come from a lot of bad practices in the past and just
Mhm.
aggressive selling strategies, particularly to senior citizens. Very, very
Yeah.
vulnerable. So in 1987, FHA stepped in and offered a reverse mortgage. They call it a home equity conversion mortgage, a reverse mortgage. And they put a lot of safeguards built into this. So, as an example, if the property values really drop precipitously, there's no prepayment or repayment requirement
Oh.
out there. So you're protected from that. We're paying insurance into this. So you're insured that never really impacts you.
So
And then
so if
yes.
somebody had taken a loan out during the last recession, like say prior to the last time we had a drop in the housing prices, they had this insurance, they would have been okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They wouldn't have been required to make any kind of repayment, irregardless of what the value of the
Oh.
property is. But conversely, if we get explosive equity growth, you actually benefit from that.
Oh.
So there's actually two plays here is you can do several payment process. One of them is a line of credit. That line of credit actually can accrue interests as it's sitting there. So that's one reason. And the other one is equity gain in the property. When the borrower passes,
Mhm.
there's obviously a loan obligation. Then they can
Right.
look at the value of the property. And if there's equity there, then, the beneficiaries get to benefit from the equity gain with the property.
S So that's interesting because I think that, years ago, I think people were fearful that if they took out an equity or they took out a reverse mortgage, that meant even if they had just received one payment, that when they passed away, that the entire house, whatever was left, would be sold and given entirely back to the lender, and nothing would be left for their heirs. That's not the case, though?
Correct. That's not the case. I mean,
Okay.
you got protection from value loss in the property, and then you get the benefit from equity gain. So it's a win-win for borrowers with reverse mortgages.
Definitely. I think it's definitely a fear people have had over the years.
Absolutely. So here's just some basics of a reverse mortgage. You must be minimum 62 years of age. You pretty much have to be working with your primary residence. You could still have a loan on the property, but most of the value in the property must be in equity. This is a minimum of
Mhm.
50%. One interesting aspect of this is if we move you into a reverse mortgage, part of that process will actually purchase and buy out that existing balance. So the
Hmm.
homeowner will no longer have any payment whatsoever on the reverse mortgage.
Oh, is that a typical does that happen with most reverse mortgages? Because I was gonna ask you that question. So they don't pay the mortgage that they had already from the income that they're getting. It's just all redone, completely rewritten.
Yeah, we're going to completely redo it. We're going to basically satisfy that existing loan balance and remove it. So there's no more mortgage payment.
Okay.
So there's a couple of ways of doing payouts in this, and I think most of us are pretty familiar with, that monthly payment that the borrower receives. A couple other options, we can set up a line of credit, and as I mentioned earlier, that can accrue over time. But we also can do a lump sum payout, and we want to take advantage of that lump sum payout to build an ADU to start creating that
Mhm.
income that's just going to be vital in our retirement years.
Yeah.
So some of the factors in determining, what kind of value you have access to is age, older the better, equity in home, and again, that remaining mortgage, less is better. Again, we're going to purchase that loan, so there'll be no mortgage payment as you go into the reverse mortgage.
Could they have a combination? Could they take some in the lump sum and then some in another way, like equal payments of some other amount?
I believe you can. There's several other options available there. I'm not totally familiar with all of the variations. We're
Mhm.
just concentrating on the lump sum payout so we can build an
Oh,
ADU.
to build the ADU. Got it.
So let's talk about a couple of income strategies with ADUs. But let's first talk about why we're looking to build an ADU to begin with. I always want to remind people that, owning a property, a lot of times you have equity. Sometimes it's very sizable. Sometimes you own the property outright. So you have a lot of equity. This is actually a way of actually putting that equity to use. Secondly, is, this is hands down one of the best real estate investments that you can make. I have a separate video about that I'm happy to share with you. And then lastly, the whole reason we're doing this is really just to create this additional income stream that we're going to need in our retirement years.
That's key right there.
So, as I mentioned, just a couple of income strategies here is you could obviously start renting out the ADU in your backyard, or you can think about designing that ADU to your new retirement lifestyle, move into that, and then start renting out the primary dwelling to really maximize your income opportunities.
Right, that I mean, just even looking at the slide, you can see what a difference that would make, especially if in your retirement years, you're just 1 or 2 people. You don't need that much space, or maybe you're gonna be traveling a lot. It makes a lot of sense to move into the ADU.
Yeah, for example, I was working with a client a couple of years ago. They had a two-story house. They actually didn't build an ADU, but they actually created a complete master suite on the ground floor because they knew as they retired, they're not going to be able to work their way up the stairs.
There's Yeah, that
So,
makes a lot of
so
sense.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I just love the idea that, the baby boomers can really start thinking about what their needs are in their retirement and really just maximize and design that ADU for their preference in their retirement years. I just
Yeah,
think that's just a win-win, and then they're getting maximum income opportunity.
yeah, definitely.
So this was just sort of an overview, just hitting sort of the high points to it. I'm sure if any questions come up, we'd be happy to answer them and just look at reverse mortgages or any other types of financing opportunities.
Definitely. And well, thanks, Will, for bringing this to the forefront and sharing with me about how to use a reverse mortgage to build an ADU. I think it's something every person who doesn't have enough money to retire on, or maybe they want to retire a little bit sooner than they're financially able to, they really, really need to take a look at this in their own personal finances and see if this is an answer for them, because I think it can make a huge difference in their life and their quality of life, like moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you all of the conversations I've had with people that, the subject of retirement, they're not going into retirement as of yet, but, that's sort of the long-term strategy with
Yeah.
building an ADU. So it's just another solution or opportunity.
Definitely, definitely. Well, thank you for sharing that with me. And if
Thank you,
you
Maria.
want, you're welcome. If you want to contact Will, if you want to talk to him more about the loans and building an ADU and get information like that, I'll put his contact information below, and it's right here on the screen right now. But if you miss it, it'll be below, and give him a call.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in the next mortgage video update.